The scent of his cologne, usually a comfort. I saw the glint of a silver locket on the floor, half hidden beneath the antique rug, and a cold dread began to coil in. My stomach? It wasn't mine. It couldn't be. My world, built on years of unwavering trust, was about to shatter into a million irreparable pieces. The silence in the house was deafening, amplifying the frantic beat of my own heart. I knew, in that gut-wrenching moment, that nothing would ever be the same. It had been a whirlwind romance, the kind you read about in novels, not experience in real life, especially not at 45 Mark. With his kind eyes and infectious laugh had swept me off my feet after years of quiet solitude following my divorce. He was everything I hadn't known I was missing. Attentive, passionate, and genuinely interested in my life. We'd spent countless evenings talking for hours, sharing dreams and fears under the soft glow of my living room lamp. He'd even charmed my notoriously skeptical sister, Sarah, a feat I'd thought impossible. Our life together quickly settled into a comfortable rhythm, a dance of shared meals, weekend getaways, and the quiet joy of simply being in each other's presence. I felt a sense of peace I hadn't known in years, a deep contentment that settled into my bones. I truly believed I had found my forever person, a partner who understood the complexities of my past and embraced the woman I had become. The locket, however, was a discordant note in this symphony of happiness. It was delicate, intricately carved with a single unfamiliar initial E. My mind raced, trying to conjure a logical explanation, a forgotten gift from a past relationship. But the way it lay there, almost hidden, felt deliberate, a secret waiting to be unearthed. I picked it up, the cool metal a stark contrast to the warmth I usually felt when thinking of Mark. A tiny, almost imperceptible tremor ran through my hand. This was not like him. He was an open book, or so I thought. The seed of doubt, once planted, began to sprout, its tendrils slowly wrapping around my heart. I tried to push it away, to rationalize, to dismiss it as an overreaction. But the image of the locket, small and innocent yet so profoundly out of place, kept replaying in my mind, a silent alarm bell ringing in the quiet of my home. I told myself it was nothing, that I was being paranoid, but the unsettling feeling persisted, a subtle hum beneath the surface of my calm facade. The evening stretched before me, an endless expanse of unanswered questions. I knew I had to confront him, but the thought filled me with a terrifying mix of dread and a desperate hope that my fears were unfounded. The air grew heavy with unspoken anxieties, and the comfortable silence of my home now felt charged with an ominous tension. I clutched the locket, its coldness a stark reminder of the unsettling mystery that had just entered my perfectly ordered world. The weight of it in my palm felt significant, a harbinger of the storm that was brewing just beneath the surface of my seemingly perfect life. I took a deep breath, trying to steady my racing heart, but the unease was a persistent companion, whispering doubts into my ear. This was just the beginning, though I didn't know it then, of a journey into a truth far more complex and painful than I could ever imagine. About to open it, I tried to busy myself to shake off the unsettling feeling the locket had brought. I started dinner, the familiar rhythm of chopping vegetables a small comfort. But my mind kept drifting back to the initial E. Who was she, and why was her locket in my home, hidden? When Mark finally arrived, his usual cheerful greeting felt hollow, almost performative. He kissed my cheek, a fleeting touch that did little to quell the rising tide of my suspicion. But he was as charming and composed as ever. Asking about my day, recounting his own, was almost too perfect, too normal. I decided to approach the subject subtly. Testing the waters. Honey, I began, trying to keep my voice light. I was tidying up and found something. It must have fallen out of your pocket. I held out the locket, careful to keep my expression neutral. Oh, that old thing, he chuckled, taking it from my hand. It's my grandmother's. I must have forgotten. It was in my coat pocket. He slipped it into his own pocket with a casualness that felt forced. My heart sank. His grandmother. He had never mentioned a grandmother named E, and why would he carry his grandmother's locket in his coat pocket? The story felt flimsy, a hastily constructed lie. I nodded, pretending to accept his explanation. But inside, a cold knot of dread tightened. The evening continued, a charade of normalcy. We ate dinner, watched a movie, and talked about our plans for the weekend. But every word he spoke, every gesture he made, was now filtered through the lens of my suspicion. I found myself scrutinizing him, searching for inconsistencies, for the cracks in his facade. The man I thought I knew, the man I had fallen deeply in love with, suddenly felt like a stranger. Later that night, as he slept soundly beside me, I lay awake, the locket's presence in his pocket a burning weight in my mind. I knew I couldn't let this go. The truth, whatever it was, needed to be uncovered. My trust, once absolute, was now fractured, and the only way to mend it was to understand what he was hiding. The silence of the night was punctuated only by the soft rhythm of his breathing, a stark contrast to the turmoil raging within me. I felt a profound sense of loneliness, despite his proximity. The warmth of his body next to mine offered no comfort, only a chilling reminder of the distance that had suddenly appeared between us, a symbol of the unspoken secrets that now threatened to unravel the very fabric of our relationship. I closed my eyes, but sleep wouldn't come. The questions swirled, in my mind, each one more unsettling than the last. Who was E? What was her connection to Mark, and why was he lying to me? The answers, I knew, would either confirm my worst fears or finally bring me peace. But the path to those answers felt fraught with peril, and I was terrified of what I might find. The next morning, I woke with a heavy heart, the locket still a phantom weight in my palm. Mark was already up, making coffee, his usual morning cheerfulness, a stark contrast to my internal turmoil. I watched him, searching for any sign of guilt, any crack in his composed demeanor. There was none. He was humming a tune, completely at ease. It made me question my own sanity. Was I overreacting? Was it truly just his grandmother's locket and I was conjuring drama where there was none? But the unease persisted, a nagging voice in the back of my mind. I decided to do some digging. While Mark was in the shower, I subtly checked his phone. I felt a pang of guilt, but the need for answers outweighed my moral qualms. His phone was unlocked, a habit he had never broken. I scrolled through his recent calls, texts, and social media. Nothing. No suspicious numbers, no cryptic messages. It was all perfectly normal, almost too normal. My suspicion began to wane, replaced by a wave of self-reproach. I was becoming the paranoid, jealous woman I swore I'd never be. Just as I was about to put the phone back, a notification popped up from an unfamiliar app. It was a messaging app I didn't recognize, one he had never used with me. My heart pounded. I opened it, and there it was, a conversation with someone named Ilara. My breath hitched. Ilara E. The pieces clicked into place with a sickening thud. The messages were recent, intimate, filled with terms of endearment. Missing you, my love. One read. Can't wait to see you again. Another. My vision blurred, and the world around me seemed to tilt on its axis. It wasn't his grandmother. It was another woman. The betrayal hit me like a physical blow, stealing the air from my lungs. I felt a cold, burning rage ignite within me, quickly followed by a profound sense of despair. The beautiful life we had built, the trust I had so freely given, was nothing but a carefully constructed lie. I scrolled further, my fingers trembling, each message a fresh stab to my heart. They talked about secret meetings, about a future together, about how much they longed to be free of their current situations. My current situation? He was talking about me. The humiliation was overwhelming. I wanted to scream, to throw his phone across the room, to shatter the illusion that had so cruelly enveloped me, but I couldn't. He would be out of the shower any minute. I quickly closed the app, put the phone back exactly where I found it, and tried to compose myself. My hands were shaking, my heart still racing, but I forced myself to breathe, to appear calm. The coffee was ready, its aroma filling the kitchen, a stark contrast to the bitter taste in my mouth. He emerged from the bathroom, towel wrapped around his waist, a smile on his face. "Morning, beautiful," he said, oblivious to the storm raging within me. I managed a weak smile in return, my voice catching in my throat. The charade had to continue. For now, I needed time to process this, to plan my next move. The game had changed, and I was no longer just a player. I was a detective. And the truth, no matter how painful, would be my ultimate reward. The day passed in a blur of forced smiles and strained conversations. Every time Mark spoke, I heard Elara's name echoing in my mind, a constant reminder of his deception. I found myself observing him with a new, chilling clarity. The way he'd touch my arm, the casual endearments, the way he'd look at me, it all felt like a performance, a cruel mockery of our love. I couldn't bring myself to eat, the food tasting like ash in my mouth. He noticed, of course. You feeling all right, love? You seem a little off today." His concern, once a source of comfort, now felt like another layer of his elaborate lie. I mumbled something about a headache, a convenient excuse to retreat into myself. I needed to think, to strategize. Confrontation, I knew, was inevitable, but I needed to gather more evidence to understand the full extent of his betrayal. That evening, after he had fallen asleep, I crept out of bed, my heart pounding in my chest. I retrieved his phone, my fingers trembling as I navigated back to the messaging app. I scrolled through the conversation with Alara, my eyes scanning for clues. For anything that would give me a clearer picture of their relationship. They had been seeing each other for months, it seemed, their affair blossoming under my very nose. They discussed future plans, a life together. A life that excluded me entirely. The pain was excruciating, a sharp, searing agony that threatened to consume me. But amidst the pain, a cold resolve began to form. I wasn't going to be a victim. I wasn't going to let him get away with this. I took screenshots of the most incriminating messages, saving them to my own phone. I felt a surge of grim satisfaction as I did so, a sense of reclaiming some small piece of control. Then, I noticed something else, something that made my blood run cold. They had a shared calendar, meticulously detailing their clandestine meetings. Dates, times, locations, it was all there, laid bare for me to see. My stomach churned. One entry, in particular, caught my eye. Weekend getaway cabin. It was for next month, a weekend he had told me he would be away on a business trip. The audacity, the sheer brazenness of it was almost unbelievable. He was planning to take her to the cabin, our cabin, the place where we had shared so many intimate moments, where we had dreamed of our future together. The betrayal was deeper than I could have ever imagined. It wasn't just an affair, it was a complete disregard for our shared history, for the sanctity of our relationship. I closed the app, my mind reeling. The evidence was overwhelming. There was no denying it now. The man I loved, the man I had trusted implicitly, was a stranger, a liar, a cheat. I returned to bed, but sleep was impossible. The images of their messages, the shared calendar, the thought of them at our cabin, it all swirled in my mind, a tormenting kaleidoscope of deceit. The night stretched on an endless expanse of pain and anger, but beneath it all, a flicker of strength, a nascent determination to face this head-on, to reclaim my life from the wreckage of his lies. I would not be broken, I would not be defeated. This was war, and I was ready to fight. The next few days were a masterclass in emotional suppression. I moved through my routine like a ghost, a hollow shell of my former self. Mark, oblivious to the storm brewing beneath my calm exterior, continued his charade, his affectionate gestures, now feeling like a cruel parody. I found myself flinching at his touch, the warmth of his hand on my arm sending shivers of disgust down my spine. I spent every spare moment meticulously planning. I needed to expose him, but not in a fit of rage. I needed to be strategic, to ensure that when the truth finally came out, it would be undeniable, leaving him no room for denial or manipulation. My first step was to discreetly gather more information about Alara. The messaging app had given me her full name, and a quick search on social media revealed a meticulously curated online presence. She was younger, vibrant, with a seemingly perfect life. Her profile was filled with photos of exotic vacations, lavish dinners, and a beaming smile that now felt like a personal affront. I noticed a recurring theme in her posts: expensive jewelry, and then I saw a photo of her wearing a silver locket, identical to the one I had found. My blood ran cold. It wasn't just a locket. It was her locket. The confirmation, though painful, solidified my resolve. This wasn't a casual fling. This was a serious long-term affair. The depth of his deception was staggering. I also started documenting everything. I kept a hidden journal, detailing every suspicious interaction, every lie, every piece of evidence I uncovered. I took photos of the messages, the shared calendar, anything that could serve as irrefutable proof. I felt like a spy in my own home, a stranger in my own life. The emotional toll was immense. I barely slept, haunted by images of Mark and Alara, their laughter echoing in my mind. The pain was a constant companion, a dull ache that never truly subsided, but beneath the pain, a new emotion began to surface. A fierce determination. I wasn't going to let him destroy me. I was going to fight for my dignity, for my peace of mind. One evening, as Mark was engrossed in a football game, I subtly brought up the topic of the cabin. You know, I said, trying to sound casual, I was thinking of heading up to the cabin next month. It's been a while and I could use a change of scenery. He stiffened, just imperceptibly, but I noticed. Oh, really? He said, his voice a little too quick, a little too forced. I was actually planning a business trip that weekend. A big client meeting, you know? His eyes darted away, a telltale sign of his discomfort. I feigned disappointment. Oh, that's a shame. I was really looking forward to it. He offered a flimsy apology, promising we'd go another time. The lie hung in the air between us, thick and suffocating. I smiled, a tight, humorless smile. He had no idea what was coming. The trap was set. All I had to do was wait for him to walk into it. The anticipation was a bitter cocktail of dread and perverse satisfaction. I knew the confrontation would be painful, but the thought of finally exposing his deceit, of reclaiming my truth, was a powerful motivator. The silence in the room, once comfortable, was now filled with the unspoken tension of a battle about to begin. I was ready. The days crawled by, each one a test of my self-control. I maintained the facade of a loving partner, even as my heart hardened with every passing hour. Mark, seemingly reassured by my apparent acceptance of his flimsy excuses, became more relaxed, more affectionate. His kisses felt like a violation, his compliments like insults. I had to resist the urge to scream, to shatter the illusion, to demand the truth, but I knew patience was my greatest weapon. I spent my evenings researching legal options, consulting with a divorce lawyer discreetly. I learned about marital assets, alimony, and the legal implications of infidelity. The more I learned, the more empowered I felt. This wasn't just about emotional betrayal, it was about protecting myself, securing my future. I also started making arrangements for my own escape. I quietly opened a new bank account, transferred some funds, and began packing a small bag with essentials, hiding it in the back of my closet. I didn't know when I would need it, but I wanted to be ready. The thought of leaving, of starting over, was terrifying. But the alternative, staying in a marriage built on lies, was far worse. One afternoon, while Mark was at work, I decided to visit the cabin. I needed to see it, to reclaim it, before he tainted it with his deceit. The drive was somber, the familiar winding roads now feeling alien and unwelcoming. The cabin, nestled among the trees, looked peaceful, untouched by the turmoil that was about to erupt. I walked through the rooms, memories flooding back. Laughter, whispered secrets, shared dreams. Each memory was a fresh wound, a reminder of the beautiful lie I had lived. I found a hidden compartment in the old wooden desk, a place where Mark and I used to hide small mementos. Inside, I found a small velvet-covered journal. My heart pounded as I opened it. It was Ilara's. My hands trembled as I read the first entry. It was a love letter to Mark, detailing their first meeting, their stolen moments, their plans for the future. She wrote about how he had promised to leave me, how he had assured her that I was just a temporary obstacle. The words were a venomous poison, seeping into my soul, confirming my worst fears. But then, I read something that made me pause. Ilara wrote about her own past, a troubled history of abandonment and insecurity. She spoke of her desperate need for love, for stability, for a family. She mentioned a child, a young daughter named Lily, who was her entire world, a daughter. This was a complication I hadn't anticipated. My anger, though still present, was now tinged with a strange sense of pity. Ilara wasn't just a homewrecker. She was a woman, perhaps as broken and vulnerable as I felt in that moment, desperately searching for happiness. The situation was far more complex than a simple case of infidelity. It was a tangled web of deceit, pain, and desperation, with innocent lives caught in the crossfire. I closed the journal, my mind reeling. The clear lines of right and wrong had blurred. What was I to do now? My plan for a clean, decisive break suddenly felt inadequate, almost cruel. The cabin, once a symbol of our love, now felt like a crucible, a place where my understanding of betrayal had deepened, revealing layers of human frailty I hadn't expected. I left the cabin, the journal clutched tightly in my hand, the weight of its contents heavy on my soul. The path ahead was no longer clear, but one thing was certain: the truth, in all its messy complexity, was finally within my grasp. Armed with Ilara's journal, I returned home, the weight of its revelations pressing down on me. The anger I had felt towards her had softened, replaced by a complex mix of empathy and continued resentment. She was a victim too, in a way manipulated by Mark's deceit, just as I had been. But her vulnerability didn't erase the pain she had inflicted, however unknowingly. I spent the next day in a haze, rereading the journal, trying to piece together the full narrative of their affair. It was clear that Mark had painted a picture of a loveless marriage, of a wife who no longer understood him, of a man trapped in a suffocating existence, promising her a future he had no intention of delivering. The thought of Lily, Ilara's daughter, was a constant ache. An innocent child, caught in the crossfire of adult deceit? How would this affect her? The idea of breaking up a family, even one built on lies, was deeply unsettling. My initial plan of a swift, decisive confrontation now felt too simplistic, too brutal. I needed a new approach, one that would expose Mark's betrayal without causing undue harm to Ilara or her daughter. I decided to reach out to Sarah, my sister. She was my rock, my confidant, and she had a pragmatic mind that I desperately needed. I called her, my voice trembling as I recounted the entire sordid tale. The locket, the messages, the shared calendar, and finally Ilara's journal. Sarah listened patiently, her silence a comforting presence on the other end of the line. When I finished, there was a long pause. "He's a monster," she finally said, her voice laced with a quiet fury. "And you, my dear sister, are a saint for even considering her feelings." Her words, though harsh, were a balm to my wounded soul. She validated my pain, my anger, but also acknowledged the complexity of the situation. We talked for hours, brainstorming strategies. Sarah, ever the realist, suggested I focus on protecting myself first. "You need to secure your financial future, your home. Don't let him walk all over you." She also advised me to gather more concrete evidence, something that would stand up in court if necessary. "He's a master manipulator and he'll try to turn this around on you." Her words resonated. I knew Mark's charm, his ability to twist narratives. I needed to be prepared. The next step was to confront Mark, but not in a way he expected. I wouldn't scream or cry. I would be calm, collected, and armed with irrefutable proof. I would expose his lies not just to him, but to anyone who needed to know. The thought of his reaction, the look on his face when his carefully constructed world crumbled, filled me with a grim satisfaction. But beneath the desire for retribution, there was still a deep sadness. A mourning for the love I thought we had, for the future I had so eagerly envisioned. The path ahead was still uncertain, but with Sarah by my side and a newfound resolve, in my heart I felt a flicker of hope. I would not be defined by his betrayal. I would emerge from this stronger, wiser, and ultimately free. The battle was far from over, but I was ready to fight. And this time I was fighting for myself. The following morning, I put my plan into motion. I started by making sure all my important documents were secure. I gathered birth certificates, passports, financial statements, and deeds, placing them in a fireproof safe that I then moved to Sarah's house. It felt like I was preparing for a siege, and in a way, I was. Every action was deliberate, calculated. I wanted to leave no stone unturned, no vulnerability unaddressed. I also contacted a therapist. The emotional toll of the past few days had been immense, and I knew I couldn't navigate this alone. The therapist listened with a compassionate ear, validating my feelings of anger, betrayal, and grief. She helped me understand that my reactions were normal, and that it was okay to feel everything I was feeling. She also gave me practical advice on how to approach the confrontation with Mark, emphasizing the importance of staying calm and focused. "He will try to deflect, to blame, to manipulate," she warned. "Don't engage. Stick to the facts. You have the evidence. That's all you need." Her words were a lifeline, grounding me in the swirling chaos of my emotions. I spent the rest of the day meticulously organizing the evidence. I printed out the screenshots of the messages, the shared calendar entries, and even scanned relevant pages from Ilara's journal. I created a timeline of events, highlighting Mark's lies and deceptions. When I was finished, I had a thick folder, a damning testament to his betrayal. It was a painful process, reliving each moment of deceit, but it also solidified my resolve. This wasn't just about me anymore. It was about justice, about holding him accountable for his actions. That evening, Mark came home, his usual cheerful demeanor intact. He asked about my day, completely unaware of the meticulous preparations I had made. We sat down for dinner, and I felt a strange sense of detachment, as if I were watching a play unfold, a drama in which I was both a participant and an observer. After dinner, as he settled onto the couch to watch TV, I took a deep breath. "Mark," I began, my voice steady, "we need to talk." He looked at me, a flicker of annoyance in his eyes. "Can't it wait, honey? The game's about to start?" "No," I said, my voice firm, "it can't." I walked over to the coffee table and placed the folder in front of him. His eyes widened as he saw the contents, the color draining from his face. The casual indifference he had maintained for days shattered, replaced by a look of pure shock and dawning horror. He picked up the first page, a screenshot of a message from Ilara, his name clearly visible. His hand trembled. "What is this?" he whispered, his voice barely audible. "This," I said, my voice devoid of emotion, "is the truth." The silence that followed was deafening, filled only with the frantic beating of my own heart. The moment of reckoning had arrived, and I was ready. Mark's face contorted, a mixture of disbelief and anger. This is a misunderstanding," he stammered, his eyes darting around the room as if searching for an escape route. "You've got it all wrong." His voice was weak, lacking its usual conviction. "Do I?" I countered, my voice calm, almost clinical. "Do I have it wrong, Mark? Because these messages, this calendar, this locket, they tell a very different story." I pointed to the silver locket, which I had placed on top of the folder. He flinched, his gaze falling on the incriminating object. "Ilara's journal," I continued, my voice rising slightly, "paints an even clearer picture of your deceit." His jaw dropped. He hadn't known about the journal. That was a surprise I had kept for this very moment. The color drained from his face, leaving him pale and shaken. He tried to speak, but no words came out. He was cornered, his usual charm and manipulative tactics rendered useless by the sheer volume of evidence. "I know about the cabin, Mark," I said, delivering the final blow. "I know you plan to take her there, to our cabin, the place where we built so many memories." His eyes widened in horror, and he finally collapsed onto the couch, defeated. The bravado was gone, replaced by a look of utter despair. I can explain," he finally managed, his voice barely a whisper. "There's nothing to explain, Mark," I said, my voice firm. "The evidence speaks for itself." I watched him, a strange mix of emotions swirling within me. There was no triumph, no satisfaction. Only a profound sadness for the man I thought I knew, for the love I thought we shared. He was a stranger, a hollow shell of the person I had fallen in love with. He began to plead, to beg for forgiveness, to promise he would change. He swore it was a mistake, a momentary lapse in judgment, that he still loved me. His words were empty, devoid of meaning. I had heard them all before, in the messages to Ilara. "Save your breath, Mark," I said, cutting him off. "It's too late for explanations, too late for apologies. You made your choice." I stood up, the weight of the moment pressing down on me. "I want you to leave," I said, my voice unwavering. "Tonight?" He looked up at me, his eyes filled with a desperate plea. "Where will I go?" he asked, his voice cracking. "That's no longer my concern," I replied, my heart hardening. "You made your bed, Mark. Now lie in it." The silence returned. Heavy and suffocating, he slowly rose from the couch, his shoulders slumped in defeat. He looked around the room as if seeing it for the first time, the home we had built together now, a monument to his betrayal. I watched him gather a few essentials, his movements slow and deliberate. He didn't look at me, couldn't meet my gaze. The man who had once filled my life with laughter and love was now a ghost, a shadow of his former self. As he walked out the door, I felt a strange sense of emptiness, a void where love and trust once resided. But beneath the emptiness, a flicker of something new began to emerge. A sense of liberation, a quiet strength. The storm had broken and I was still standing. The path ahead was uncertain, but I was finally free to walk it on my own terms. The house felt eerily quiet after Mark left, a silence that was both liberating and profoundly lonely. I walked through the rooms, the echoes of our life together reverberating in the empty spaces. Every object, every piece of furniture held a memory, a ghost of what once was. The pain was still raw, a gaping wound in my heart, but beneath it, a sense of calm began to settle. The uncertainty, the gnawing suspicion, was gone. The truth, however painful, had set me free. I called Sarah, my voice thick with emotion. "He's gone," I whispered. And for the first time in days, I allowed myself to cry. Not tears of sadness, but of release. Sarah listened, offering words of comfort and support. "You did good, sis," she said, her voice filled with pride. "You stood up for yourself." Her words were a balm to my soul. The next few days were a blur of practicalities. I changed the locks, contacted a locksmith, and began the arduous process of untangling our lives. I met with my lawyer, who assured me that with the evidence I had, the divorce would be straightforward. It was a daunting task, but I approached it with a newfound determination. I wasn't just ending a marriage, I was reclaiming my life. I also reached out to Ilara. It was a difficult decision, but I felt a strange obligation to her, and to Lily. I found her number in Mark's phone, and sent her a simple text. "We need to talk. It's about Mark." She called me back almost immediately, her voice hesitant, filled with trepidation. We met at a neutral coffee shop, the air thick with unspoken tension. She was younger than I expected, with kind eyes that held a hint of sadness. I laid out the evidence, showing her the messages, the calendar, the locket. Her face paled as she realized the extent of Mark's deception. She cried, tears streaming down her face as she recounted her own story. Her hopes, her dreams, all shattered by his lies. She spoke of Lily, her innocent daughter, and how much she had wanted a stable family for her. My heart ached for her. We were both victims of the same man, caught in his web of deceit. As we talked, a strange bond began to form between us. A shared understanding of betrayal and resilience. We weren't enemies. We were two women who had been wronged, and who were now, together, picking up the pieces of their lives. We discussed our next steps, how to protect ourselves, how to move forward. Ilara, with a newfound resolve, decided to confront Mark herself, to demand answers, to ensure he would never hurt another woman again. As I left the coffee shop, the sun was setting, casting long shadows across the street. The world still felt a little off-kilter, but for the first time in a long time, I felt a sense of hope. The journey ahead would be challenging, but I wasn't alone. I had Sarah, my lawyer, and now, a surprising ally in Alara. The storm had passed, and though the landscape was irrevocably changed, I knew I would find my way through it. This was not an ending, but a new beginning, a chance to rebuild my life, on a foundation of truth and strength, and this time, I would build it for myself. The meeting with Alara had been cathartic, a surprising turn in a narrative I thought I had fully mapped out about Mark, but about our lives, our dreams, our fears. We realized that Mark's deceit wasn't just about us. It was a pattern, a carefully constructed facade he presented to the world. We discovered, through some discreet online digging, that he had a history of similar relationships, leaving a trail of broken hearts and shattered trust in his wake. He was a master of manipulation, a chameleon who adapted his persona to suit his prey. It was about him, his pathology, his inability to form genuine connections. This understanding shifted my perspective. My anger, once directed solely at him, now encompassed a broader sense of injustice, a desire to prevent him from hurting others. Alara and I decided to combine our efforts. We shared all the evidence we had, cross-referencing dates, messages, and his elaborate lies. The picture that emerged was even more disturbing than I had initially imagined. He had been leading a double, sometimes triple, life for years, juggling multiple relationships with astonishing precision. The sheer audacity of it was breathtaking. We also realized that his financial situation was far more precarious than he had let on. He had been living beyond his means, using his charm and our resources to maintain a lavish lifestyle. This added another layer to his deceit, a calculated exploitation that went beyond emotional betrayal. My lawyer was thrilled with the new information. "This strengthens your case immensely," she said, her voice filled with a quiet satisfaction. "We can argue for a more favorable settlement and potentially expose his financial misconduct." The thought of hitting him where it hurt, his wallet, brought a grim smile to my face. Alara, too, was determined to hold him accountable. She had her own legal battles to fight, particularly regarding child support and his financial obligations. To Lily, we realized that by working together we could present a united front, a formidable force against his deceit. The next step was to confront him again, but this time it wouldn't be a private reckoning, where he couldn't resort to his usual tactics of intimidation or charm. The date was set, the location chosen. This wasn't just about personal revenge, it was about justice, about protecting other women from his predatory behavior. The battle was escalating, and I was ready for the fight. This time, I wasn't alone. I had an ally, a fellow survivor, and together we were a force to be reckoned with. The stage was set for the final act, and I was determined to ensure that justice would prevail. The day of the confrontation arrived, heavy with anticipation. Alara and I met an hour beforehand, fortifying ourselves with strong coffee and a shared sense of purpose. We went over our strategy one last time, rehearsing our lines, anticipating his reactions. We had chosen a busy downtown cafe, a place where his usual theatrics would be out of place, where witnesses would be plentiful. He arrived precisely on time, his usual confident stride faltering slightly as he saw us both. His eyes darted between Alara and me, a flicker of confusion, then dawning realization crossing his face. He tried to compose himself, to put on his charming smile, but it was a weak imitation of his usual self. "What is this?" he asked, his voice strained, a hint of desperation creeping in. "A reunion? Something like that." "Mark," I said, my voice steady, betraying none of the turmoil within. "We're here to talk about the truth." Alara, usually more reserved, spoke next, her voice surprisingly strong. "The truth about your lies, Mark. The truth about your deception." He tried to interrupt, to bluster, to deny, but we were prepared. We presented our evidence calmly and methodically. The screenshots of his messages, the shared calendar, the financial discrepancies we had uncovered. Each piece of evidence was a nail in his coffin, chipping away at his carefully constructed facade. His face grew paler with each revelation, his bluster replaced by a desperate silence. He looked like a cornered animal, his eyes darting around the cafe, searching for an escape that wasn't there. He tried to appeal to my emotions, to Alara's, to play the victim, but his words rang hollow. We had seen through his act, and his manipulative tactics no longer held any power over us. "You ruined my life," he finally exploded, his voice rising, drawing the attention of other patrons. "You're just trying to destroy me." "No, Mark," I said, my voice cutting through his outburst. "You ruined your own life. We're just holding you accountable." Ilara then spoke about Lily, about his neglect, about his financial abandonment. Her words were sharp, precise, detailing his failures as a father. He visibly winced at the mention of his daughter striking a nerve. He had no defense, no excuses. The weight of his actions, laid bare for all to see, was crushing him. He finally slumped in his chair, defeated. The charm, the arrogance, the carefully constructed persona had all crumbled. He was just a man, exposed and vulnerable, stripped of his power. We outlined our demands: a fair divorce settlement, full child support for Lily, and a public acknowledgement of his deceit. He tried to negotiate, to bargain, but we were unyielding. We had him, and he knew it. As we stood to leave, he looked at me, his eyes filled with a strange mix of anger and something akin to fear. "You'll regret this," he muttered, his voice hoarse. "No, Mark," I said, looking him directly in the eye. "I won't. This is the first day of the rest of my life." We walked out of the cafe, leaving him alone with his shattered illusions. The air outside felt fresh, clean, as if a heavy weight had been lifted. The battle was far from over, but the first major victory was ours. And for the first time in a long time, I felt a profound sense of peace, a quiet triumph that resonated deep within my soul. The future was uncertain, but it was mine to shape, free from the shadows of his lies. The aftermath of the cafe confrontation was a whirlwind of legal proceedings and emotional processing. Mark, stripped of his bravado, became surprisingly compliant. Left him with little room to maneuver. My lawyer, a formidable woman named Brenda, handled the divorce with efficiency and a steely resolve. The financial settlement was more than fair, ensuring my security and independence. It wasn't about revenge, but about justice, about reclaiming what was rightfully mine. Ilara, too, made significant progress with her own legal battles. Mark was forced to acknowledge Lily as his daughter and commit to substantial child support payments. It was a victory not just for Ilara, but for Lily, who would now have the financial security she deserved. The process was draining emotionally and physically, but each step forward felt like a triumph. I found myself leaning heavily on Sarah, who was a constant source of strength and unwavering support. She celebrated every small victory with me and listened patiently to my moments of doubt and despair. Our bond, already strong, deepened even further through this ordeal. It was crucial to process the trauma. To heal the wounds left by Mark's betrayal, my therapist helped me understand that healing wasn't a linear process, that there would be good days and bad days, but that each day was a step towards reclaiming my sense of self. One afternoon, I received a call from Ilara. Her voice was lighter, filled with a newfound optimism. She told me she had found a new job, a better one, and that Lily was thriving. She thanked me profusely for my help, for my courage, for showing her that she wasn't alone. The darkest of times, good can emerge. We decided to meet again, not in a tense cafe, but for a relaxed lunch. It was a different kind of meeting, one filled with laughter and shared stories, not of betrayal, but of resilience. We talked about our futures, about the possibilities that lay ahead. It was a testament to the unexpected bonds that can form. In the crucible of adversity, as I drove home that day, I felt a profound sense of peace. The storm had truly passed. The wreckage was still there, but I was no longer trapped in it. I was rebuilding, brick by brick, a new life, a stronger life, a life built on truth and self-respect. The journey had been arduous, but I had emerged from it, not broken, but transformed. I was a survivor, and I was ready for whatever the future held. The past, though painful, had forged a new me, a woman who knew her worth, who understood the power of her own strength. And that, I realized, was the greatest victory of all. Life began to settle into a new rhythm, one that was quieter, more intentional, and surprisingly fulfilling. The legal battles, while not entirely over, had moved into a less intense phase, allowing me to breathe, to focus on rebuilding. I reconnected with old friends I had neglected during my marriage, rediscovering the joy of shared laughter and easy companionship. My home, once filled with the tension of unspoken truths, now felt like a sanctuary, a space where I could truly be myself. I started painting again, a hobby I had abandoned years ago. The vibrant colors and the meditative act of creation were incredibly therapeutic, a way to express emotions that words couldn't capture. Each brushstroke felt like a step towards healing, a reclaiming of my own identity. I also began volunteering at a local women's shelter, hearing the stories of other women who had faced similar betrayals, who were rebuilding their lives from scratch, was both humbling and inspiring. It put my own struggles into perspective and fueled my desire to help others. I realized that my experience, however painful, could be a source of strength and empathy for those who were just beginning their own journeys of healing. Ilara and I continued to meet regularly. Our conversations had shifted from the shared trauma of Mark's deceit to the shared joys of our new lives. We talked about our careers, our personal growth, and the challenges and triumphs of single motherhood. Lily, Ilara's daughter, was a bright, energetic child, and I found myself growing fond of her. It was a strange, unexpected family that had formed from the ashes of betrayal, but it was a family nonetheless. One evening, as I was preparing dinner, I received a text message from an unknown number. My heart instinctively tightened, a lingering reflex from the days of constant suspicion. But it was Ilara. He's trying to contact me again, she wrote, followed by a screenshot of a message from Mark. He was trying to apologize, to explain, to worm his way back into her life, promising he had changed. My blood boiled. The audacity of the man? He was relentless, a predator who refused to acknowledge his defeat. I immediately called Ilara. Don't respond, I advised, my voice firm. He's just trying to manipulate you. He hasn't changed. We discussed our options. We could ignore him, block him, or, as Brenda had suggested, file a restraining order. We decided to consult with Brenda first, to ensure we were taking the most effective legal steps. The brief resurgence of Mark's presence was a stark reminder that healing wasn't a straight line, that there would be setbacks, moments when the past would try to creep back in. But this time, I wasn't alone. I had a support system, a network of strong women who had my back. And I knew with a certainty that resonated deep within my soul that we would face this, and every challenge that came our way together. The path ahead was still unfolding, but I was walking it with my head held high, surrounded by the strength of sisterhood, ready for whatever came next. Brenda, true to form, was unflappable. He's testing the waters, she explained, her voice calm and authoritative. He thinks if he can get a rise out of you or Ilara, he can regain some control. She advised us to document every attempt he made to contact us, no matter how seemingly innocuous. Every text, every email, every attempted phone call, it all builds a pattern of harassment. She then outlined the process for obtaining a restraining order, emphasizing that it was a preventative measure, a legal barrier to protect us from his continued intrusion. Ilara and I agreed. We had no desire to engage with him further, only to ensure our peace and safety. The thought of him still lurking, still trying to insinuate himself back into our lives, was unsettling. The restraining order felt like a necessary shield. The process was surprisingly quick, given the clear pattern of his past behavior and the overwhelming evidence we had already presented during the divorce proceedings. Within a week, a judge had granted the order, legally prohibiting Mark from contacting either of us or Lily in any way. The feeling of relief was immense, a tangible weight lifted from my shoulders. It was a clear boundary, a definitive end to his ability to disrupt our lives. With that legal hurdle cleared, I found myself with more time and emotional energy to invest in my own well-being. I started attending a women's support group, a safe space where I could share my experiences and listen to others. It was incredibly validating to hear that my feelings were universal, that many women had walked similar paths of betrayal and resilience. The group became another pillar of my support system, a community of strong, empathetic women who understood. I also began to explore new interests. I enrolled in a pottery class, finding joy in the tactile experience of shaping clay, of creating something beautiful with my own hands. It was a meditative process, a way to quiet the lingering anxieties and focus on the present moment. The imperfections in my creations were a metaphor for life, a reminder that beauty often lies in the flaws, in the journey of becoming. Ilara and I continued our regular lunches, our conversations now less about Mark and more about our individual growth. She was flourishing in her new job, and Lily was thriving in school. We often laughed about the absurdity of how we had met, two strangers brought together by the deceit of one man, now bound by a friendship that felt deeper than many I had cultivated over years. One afternoon, as I was leaving my pottery class, I saw a familiar face. It was Mark. He was standing across the street, watching me. My heart leaped into my throat, a primal fear seizing me. But then, I remembered the restraining order. I pulled out my phone, ready to call the police, my finger hovering over the dial button. He saw me, saw the phone in my hand, and his eyes widened. He quickly turned and walked away, disappearing into the crowd. The encounter was unsettling, a stark reminder that, even with legal protections, the shadow of the past could still linger. But this time, I didn't feel fear. I felt a surge of defiance, a quiet strength. He no longer had power over me. I was free, and I would continue to live my life unburdened by his presence. The path ahead was clear, and I was walking it with confidence, my head held high, ready for whatever challenges and joys it might bring. The brief, unsettling encounter with Mark served as a potent reminder that vigilance was still necessary, even with the restraining order in place. It reinforced my commitment to my new life, a life free from his toxic influence. I continued to immerse myself in my pottery, finding solace and expression in the clay. My pieces, once tentative and unsure, began to take on a bolder, more confident form, mirroring my own internal transformation. The women's support group became an even more vital part of my week. We shared not just our struggles, but our triumphs, big and small. One woman, Sarah, had finally left an abusive relationship after years of fear. Another, Maria, had started her own small business, turning her passion for baking into a thriving enterprise. Their stories were a constant source of inspiration, a testament to the resilience of the human spirit. I also found myself drawn to advocacy. The injustice I had experienced and witnessed in others ignited a fire within me. I started researching local organizations that supported women in similar situations, offering my time and skills. It felt good to channel my pain into something productive, to be a part of a larger movement for change. Ilara and I continued to grow closer. Our friendship had blossomed into something truly special, a bond forged in adversity. We celebrated each other's successes, big and small, and offered a listening ear during moments of doubt. Lily, Ilara's daughter, was thriving, and it warmed my heart to see her happy and secure. One day, Ilara called me, her voice filled with a mix of excitement and trepidation. "I got a promotion," she said, "but it means I have to relocate to another state." My heart sank for a moment. The thought of her leaving, of our newfound connection being stretched across states, was a difficult one. But then, I felt a surge of pride. This was a wonderful opportunity for her, a testament to her hard work and resilience. "That's amazing, Ilara," I exclaimed, genuinely happy for her. "We'll make it work. We'll visit, we'll call, we'll video chat. This isn't goodbye." We spent the next few weeks helping her prepare for the move, packing boxes, sorting through belongings, and sharing countless cups of coffee and laughter. It was bittersweet, but filled with the promise of new beginnings. As I waved goodbye to her and Lily at the airport, I felt a pang of sadness, but also a profound sense of gratitude. Our paths had crossed in the most unexpected way, and she had become an invaluable part of my healing journey. Her departure marked another turning point, a new chapter in my own life. It was a reminder that life was constantly evolving, that change was inevitable, and that sometimes the most painful endings could lead to the most beautiful new beginnings. I returned home, the quiet of my house no longer feeling lonely, but peaceful. The future was unwritten, but I was ready to embrace it with all its uncertainties and possibilities. I was no longer defined by my past, but by the strength and resilience I had found within myself, and that, I realized, was a truly liberating feeling. Ilara's departure left a small void, but it was quickly filled by the expanding tapestry of my own life. My pottery skills improved, and I even started selling some of my pieces at local craft fairs. The act of creating and sharing my art became a new source of joy and confidence. It was a tangible representation of my healing, a testament to the beauty that could emerge from brokenness. My involvement with the women's shelter deepened. I began leading workshops on financial literacy and emotional resilience, sharing the lessons I had learned through my own experiences. It was incredibly rewarding to see the women I worked with gain confidence, to witness their own journeys of empowerment. I realized that helping others was a powerful form of self-healing, a way to transform my pain into purpose. The support group continued to be a safe haven, a place where I could be vulnerable, where I could share my fears and celebrate my triumphs without judgment. We were a diverse group of women, each with our own unique stories, but united by a shared understanding of resilience and the power of sisterhood. We laughed, we cried, and we held each other up when the weight of the world felt too heavy. One day, I received an unexpected email. It was from Mark. My heart immediately tightened, a familiar knot of dread forming in my stomach. I almost deleted it without opening, but a strange curiosity compelled me to read it. It was short, concise, and surprisingly devoid of his usual manipulative tone. He was in rehab, he wrote, addressing his addiction issues, which he admitted had fueled much of his destructive behavior. He didn't ask for forgiveness or for a second chance. He simply stated that he was trying to become a better person for himself and for Lily. He ended the email by saying he understood if I never wanted to hear from him again, but he felt compelled to let me know. I sat there for a long time staring at the screen. The news was shocking, unexpected. I had always imagined him continuing his pattern of deceit, never truly facing the consequences of his actions. A part of me felt a flicker of hope, a tiny spark of belief that perhaps, just perhaps, he was genuinely trying to change. But another part, the part that had been deeply wounded, remained skeptical. I forwarded the email to Brenda, my lawyer, and to Alara. Brenda advised caution, reminding me of his past manipulative tendencies. Alara, however, was more open. She had been struggling with his continued absence from Lily's life, and the thought of him getting help of potentially becoming a responsible father was a glimmer of hope for her. We decided to observe to see if his actions matched his words. There would be no immediate contact, no second chances, but a cautious openness to the possibility of genuine change. The email, though unsettling, also brought a strange sense of closure. It was a reminder that life was complex, that people could change, and that even in the darkest of stories there could be a glimmer of redemption. The path ahead was still unfolding, but I was walking it with a newfound sense of peace, a quiet confidence that whatever came next, I was ready. Months turned into a year, and Mark's email remained the only contact. His commitment to rehab seemed genuine, confirmed by Alara, who had cautiously allowed him supervised visits with Lily. He was a different man, she reported, quieter, more reflective, and genuinely engaged with their daughter. The news, while welcome, still stirred a complex mix of emotions within me. Forgiveness was a long and winding road, and I was still very much on it. My own life continued to flourish. My pottery business gained traction, and I was even approached by a gallery to showcase my work. It was a dream come true, a validation of my artistic journey and a testament to the power of creative expression as a healing force. The women's shelter work became a passion. I was now coordinating a mentorship program, pairing new residents with women who had successfully rebuilt their lives. It was incredibly rewarding to witness the transformation in these women, to see them reclaim their power and find their voices. I often shared my own story, not as a cautionary tale but as a testament to resilience, to the fact that even after profound betrayal, life could not only continue but thrive. The support group remained my anchor, a place where I could share my vulnerabilities and celebrate my strengths. We had become a family, a sisterhood bound by shared experiences and unwavering support. We celebrated birthdays, mourned losses, and cheered each other on through every challenge and triumph. One crisp autumn afternoon, I received a letter. It was from Mark. My heart gave a familiar lurch, but this time it was less fear and more a quiet curiosity. It wasn't a plea or an apology, but a simple, heartfelt letter of gratitude. He thanked me for holding him accountable, for forcing him to confront his demons. He acknowledged the pain he had caused and expressed genuine remorse. He spoke of his journey in recovery, of the hard work and self-discovery, and how he was finally learning to be an honest man, a good father. He didn't ask for anything, just wanted me to know. I read the letter several times, a strange sense of peace settling over me. It wasn't about reconciliation or even forgiveness in the traditional sense. It was about closure, about acknowledging the past without letting it define my future. It was a testament to his growth, and in a way, to mine as well. I realized that true healing wasn't about forgetting or even forgiving, but about accepting, about finding a way to move forward with grace and strength. The letter was a final, unexpected gift, a confirmation that the painful chapter of my life had truly closed, leaving behind not bitterness, but a quiet understanding. The future stretched before me, open and full of possibilities. I was no longer defined by what had happened to me, but by who I had become. A woman of strength, resilience, and unwavering hope. And that, I knew, was a story worth telling. The gallery exhibition was a resounding success. My pottery pieces, each imbued with a piece of my journey, resonated deeply with the visitors. The opening night was a blur of compliments, shared stories, and the quiet satisfaction of seeing my art appreciated. It was a moment of profound validation, a testament to the transformative power of creativity and resilience. I met fascinating people, fellow artists and art enthusiasts, expanding my world in ways I hadn't imagined. The experience solidified my commitment to my art, not just as a hobby, but as a vital part of my identity. It was a reminder that even after the most devastating losses, new passions could emerge, new paths could be forged. My work at the women's shelter continued to be a source of immense fulfillment. The mentorship program was thriving, and I saw firsthand the profound impact it had on the lives of the women we served. We celebrated small victories, a woman securing her first apartment, another enrolling in college, another finding the courage to leave an abusive situation. Each success was a ripple effect, creating a wave of empowerment that extended far beyond the shelter walls. I found myself increasingly drawn to public speaking, sharing my story at various events and conferences. It was daunting at first, exposing my vulnerabilities to a large audience, but the feedback was overwhelmingly positive. Women approached me after my talks, their eyes filled with tears, telling me how my story had resonated with them, how it had given them hope. It was a powerful reminder that my pain, once a source of shame, could now be a source of inspiration for others. Ilara and I maintained our connection, our friendship evolving into a deep, unwavering bond. We spoke often, sharing updates on our lives, offering support and encouragement. Lily was flourishing, and Ilara was thriving in her new city, a testament to her own resilience and strength. We even planned a reunion, a weekend getaway with Sarah, a celebration of our collective journey, our shared sisterhood. The thought of it filled me with joy, a reminder of the unexpected blessings that had emerged from the ashes of betrayal. One afternoon, while working in my studio, I received a call from Brenda, my lawyer. My heart gave a familiar flutter, but this time it was not fear, but a sense of anticipation. "Good news," she said, her voice cheerful. "The last of the divorce proceedings are finalized. Everything is settled." It was the final legal loose end, the last official tie to my past with Mark. The news brought a quiet sense of closure, a definitive end to that chapter of my life. I hung up the phone, a deep sigh escaping my lips. It was truly over. The journey had been long, arduous, and at times incredibly painful, but I had emerged from it stronger, wiser, and more resilient than I had ever imagined. The future was not just unwritten, it was mine to create, a blank canvas waiting for the vibrant colors of my new life, and I was ready to paint it, stroke by stroke, with courage, grace, and an unwavering belief in the power of my own story. Life, in its beautiful and unpredictable way, continued to unfold. The gallery exhibition led to more opportunities, and soon my pottery was being featured in boutiques across the state. I even started teaching workshops, sharing my passion and techniques with aspiring artists. It was a joy to see others discover the therapeutic power of working with clay, just as I had. My advocacy work at the women's shelter expanded. I became a board member, helping to shape policies and secure funding for vital programs. It was a privilege to contribute to an organization that made such a tangible difference in the lives of vulnerable women. I found a deep sense of purpose in giving back, in transforming my own pain into a catalyst for positive change. The support group remained a cherished space, a constant source of strength and camaraderie. We had become more than just a group. We were a family, a testament to the enduring power of female friendship and solidarity. We celebrated each other's milestones, big and small, and offered unwavering support through life's inevitable challenges. Ilara, Sarah, and I finally had our reunion. It was a weekend filled with laughter, good food, and heartfelt conversations. We reminisced about the past, acknowledged the pain, but focused on the present and the bright future ahead. Lily, now a vibrant and articulate young girl, was a constant source of delight, a living embodiment of hope and resilience. We talked about how our lives had intertwined in such an unexpected way, and how, despite the painful circumstances, we had all emerged stronger, more authentic versions of ourselves. It was a powerful reminder that even from the deepest valleys, new mountains can be climbed. Mark, I heard through Ilara, was continuing his journey of recovery. He was a consistent presence in Lily's life, and while the past could never be erased, he was making genuine efforts to be a responsible father. It was a quiet victory, a testament to the possibility of redemption, even for those who had caused so much pain. I realized that true healing wasn't about forgetting, or even about a grand act of forgiveness, but about finding peace within myself, about releasing the burden of resentment and choosing to live a life filled with joy and purpose. My journey had been long and arduous, marked by betrayal, pain, and profound self-discovery. But through it all, I had found my voice, my strength, and my unwavering belief in the power of resilience. I was no longer a victim of circumstance, but the architect of my own destiny. The future stretched before me, a vast expanse of possibilities, and I was ready to embrace it, with an open heart and a spirit of unwavering hope. This was my story, a testament to the enduring power of the human spirit, a reminder that even after the darkest storms, the sun will always rise again.